What is the ego? Why is the ego destroying your life, your happiness? And how do you get to a place where you don't worry about your ego, where you can just say, fuck it, I don't care what other people say or think about me. I just do what I love. I just do what I feel is my calling, and I don't care about other people in my life. And if we know how to control the ego, then we can get to such a place. And we all admire those people who are just so authentic, who seem to just be aligned with themselves, who don't care about what other people say, think, or might do, who are just living their lives and their true selves. And at the core of this all is the ego and the concept of the ego. And when we look at the word ego, it means I or self. Therefore, the ego is often referred to as the image that we have of ourselves, and it is also the image that we live and act out in the world. And as you can see, the ego is only concerned about the outside world. It's only concerned about how we look on the outside and how other people perceive us on the outside. It has nothing to do with our feelings inside. It doesn't care how we feel. It doesn't care about if what we are doing is making us happy or if it's actually going into the opposite direction. And this can be very, very dangerous because the ego and the real self, they have nothing to do with each other, and we need to align those two, and we need to make sure that the ego is not controlling how we live our lives. And for some people, unfortunately, this gap can be very, very big, where what they are doing on the outside world and how they are actually constructing their lives has nothing to do with how they feel inside and what they actually want from life. And the bigger the gap is, the more emotional and psychological inner issues will arise in your life, and the more unhappiness and dissatisfaction will also be created in such a person's life. And this happens because we don't listen to ourselves, what we really want from our lives and how we want to construct our lives, but we listen to maybe other people. We want to do good for our parents. Maybe our parents want to have us a certain career path because they think it's the right thing and the safe thing. Maybe we want to impress other people. We choose a certain career because we want to have a certain living standard, and we only think this will give us this living standard, and thereby we are suppressing our real inner feelings, our needs, our wants, our desires, our talents. And this then creates all those issues when we don't listen to ourselves, what we really want deep inside of us, but we let our ego and other people influence us, and we want to construct a certain image of ourselves to the world. At the same time, what the ego also does is when you lose something that you have previously identified with, it can be a job, a certain position, it can be a materialistic thing, it can be a spouse, for example, it can also be your health, then the ego also gets involved, and it hurts the ego because it seems like you have lost a part of yourself, and then the ego steps in and tries to repair it, but the ego only does make it worse because the ego is only in it for the short term. The ego doesn't care about your long-term benefit. It doesn't care about your long-term happiness, about your long-term success. It only is concerned about how you're viewed on the outside and how other people view you. And then obviously it leads to bad decisions where you are pursuing the wrong things. The wrong things in this context mean the things that you're not going to make you happy long term. You're maybe buying status symbols that are way too expensive. They're not bringing any value long term, and they're not bringing any long term happiness to your life. Another example would be that to repair the ego, we always need to take nicer pictures on Instagram. We always need to have more likes on our pictures. We want people to admire us for the highlight reel that we put out on social media. And the issue is that obviously also who's on the other side of your social media. For example, when you look at your friends list, I'm pretty sure that 90% of the people you're friends with, you either don't truly care about or you never even really see them. They might be old friends from school, some random work colleagues, or other people that you have met in a bar once or twice. And if you construct your life in a way that you buy things, do things that only contribute to make you look good in certain situations to outside people, obviously you're setting yourself up for a miserable life and not for long-term happiness and success. And this protection mechanism of the ego, where we always seek new, more expensive things, a better car, a nicer holiday, better pictures for Instagram, a hotter wife, a better body for showing off on the beach, buying new things just to impress our neighbors. This is, although the ego thinks it's a protection mechanism where you actually try to make yourself feel good, it is nothing to do with your inner feelings and with the long-term value. And the exact opposite is the case. You are sacrificing your long-term happiness for this short-term dopamine hit where you're just trying to make you feel good in this moment, get a new like, get the envy look from your neighbor, or whatever it may be. And this is also one of the major reasons I personally think why, although we live in a first world country, for the most part, we have very, very high living standards, all our basic needs are met, still anxiety and depression are just so high. People are generally dissatisfied with their lives, and I think that all of those protection mechanisms have a very, very big role in this reason and or in this factor. And if you cannot control your ego, and if you let your ego take over, then you are doomed to just engage in this bad behavior that is not contributing to long-term success. There's a very nice quote from Osho, and it goes, love is happy when it is able to give something. The ego is happy when it is able to take something. And this is a problem that you see in many, in almost all areas in our lives. That's also why relationships don't work. We get into a relationship, for example, because we want the other person to view us in a certain way. We want the other person to show us love. We want the other person to show us how much they need us, how much they love us, instead of being in a relationship because we truly admire and love the other person. We say, I love you, but not necessarily because we truly love the other person, but often because we just want to hear it back that the other person says us the same. And if they don't say it, how upset do you get? And this is a good sign of a one-sided relationship where you are in it for your benefit. You want the other person to give you or to make you feel a certain way. And this is again your ego talking. Interestingly, in this context also, when you look at different cultures, when you look at the term and the concept of enlightenment, it often means getting rid of the heaviness of the ego, which is very, very interesting because the ego is really something that weighs heavily on you, and you can only be enlightened and live your true self if you get rid of the ego and its negative influence. When there is not anymore a conflict of who you are and who you want to be, then those people are at peace with each other or with themselves. They live their true happiness, they live their true self, and that is something that many, many people admire, but it is so hard in today's society because we are not trained at this, and I think that social media and all of those things just amplify and make it worse. And just ask yourself how many things you are doing in your life just because you're trying to impress other people, and at the same time, what are the things that you're not doing that you would love to do, but you are scared of what other people might say or think about you. And group pressure can be a real thing among young people, especially when your personality and your character isn't as strong, isn't as formed. Then we often suppress the things that we would love to do, but we are scared of what other people might say. And then you get into a really, really bad place where your life path is going into a direction that is not aligned with your true self. And you really need to be careful and really need to pay a lot of attention to that. And let's bring this back to trading a little bit, because in the end this is a trading channel, and in trading we always know the words you need to leave your ego at the door or don't get your ego involved. But what does it really mean? And in trading, when we trade with our ego or our trading ego, so to speak, we often want to see and view ourselves as this great trader who doesn't lose, who has a great system, who makes money every week, and who will be a millionaire in a year or two, preferably next week. And to protect the ego and the image we tell ourselves, we cannot lose in trading. We cannot blow up our accounts. And then what happens is that this leads to very, very bad decision making, obviously. And this leads to all the dumb stuff where you try to avoid losses, you average your losing trades, You try to recover from losses immediately. You take bigger positions than you usually should be taking, and you try to hunt for the Holy Grail system. Those are all manifestations of how we try to align, or how we try to please our trading ego. But the real world keeps showing us that we are not that great, and this is hurting our ego, obviously. And then you're in this vicious cycle where you just try to get out, you don't really know what to do anymore, but your ego is completely dominating what you should be doing, or what you are doing actually. Instead, we need to face reality. I talked about this previously, and you really need to accept and own your reality, Hubbard. You need to understand and really accept where you are right now in your path as a trader. If you are new or if you're struggling, that's okay. If this is the reality, you need to accept it, because that's the only way how you can make the right decisions. If you wrongly assume that you are already this great trader and that the $1 million is just around the corner, obviously your trading decisions will be very, very bad and not aligned with what you should be doing right now. But instead, if you accept, okay, I'm not there where I want to be, my results obviously show me that I'm not there where I want to be, what are the steps that I need to take? And then you can make the right decisions for where you are right now in your path as a trader. And there's nothing wrong with accepting the fact that you need to learn. You're not there where you want to be. Every skill takes time to develop, and there's no shortcuts. So you really need to understand, and you need to face your beliefs. You look at your trades and look for outliers. Outliers tell you so much. In a professional trading approach, your account growth should be stable and smooth. Or even if you're losing money, it should be stable and smooth. But what happens for most traders is that it's just zigzag up and down, lots of volatility, big loss, big win, account blow up, and they don't really understand what is happening. But there are a lot of outliers that you can learn from. And if you see outliers in your account balance, and if it's very, very erratic, it usually points to excessive risk taking, huge losing streaks, account blow ups, chasing losses, and all of that stuff. And then once you realize, okay, I am not where I want to be, I am still a struggling trader, then you can take the right decisions. The right decisions can be following your trading plan, avoiding shortcuts. Don't try to impress yourself, and don't try to impress other people with your results. Look at your trades objectively, avoid outliers, generally have a smooth and stable risk management approach, take your losses, learn to take losses, understand your skill level as a trader and where you are right now in your development as a trader. Build a solid foundation first. If you don't have a solid foundation, you can never build a trading career, and everything that you're doing is not going to work, and you will fail as a trader. And approach trading with a long-term view. Leave your ego, and then this is actually what it means, leave your ego at the door. Face reality, do what is necessary where, or based on where you are right now as a trader, and then you can make the right progression in the context of where you are, and you don't get your ego involved.